Hi there. My name is Kululwa Mutwa. I am your host, and this is Property Market Moves. Today in studio, I'm joined by Mr. Kwanele Boltina. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you, sister?
I'm good. So, who's Kwanele?
It depends. It really depends. You want to know me from a professional perspective, or you want to know me from a personal perspective?
Just generally.
Kwanele is a Black African child from a former Transkei.
Yeah.
Kwanele is a father. Kwanele is a brother. Kwanele is a leader. Kwanele is a role model, I'd like to think. But most importantly, I think I'm a child of God. Yeah, that's
okay. Beautiful. So you are in auctions, right? And today we'll speak specifically to property auctions.
Correct.
From listing to the time that, the hammer goes down, what does that process looks like?
It's an interesting question. Most people think auctions is just a glorified seller standing on a podium and selling assets.
Yeah.
There's a lot of behind the scenes that happens to build up. So speaking to that process, it has a whole value chain. You need to understand from a sales perspective, any asset that you sell, you need to understand its value first. Same applies with property. When we are instructed to sell property, the key important thing is to understand its true value. Okay. What does the market say about it? So obviously the process would employ us having valuators to verify the current value or status of the property, which will also give us due diligence to then know the ownership of the property, the zoning of the property, and all the intricate information that you need to be able to sell the property.
Okay.
So behind the scenes, it would generally be a team that is compiling that data and information. They put that together, they verify, they audit, and we would do what we call a cost-benefit analysis.
Okay.
Because we believe before you sell a property, also you need to understand why are you selling that property. I see there's a question that was asked, there's a perception out there, but we'll get to that as well. So it then puts us in a position to say the value chain requires us to value the property, and then we have to profile the property using the correct information.
Okay.
And then we will package it to market and advertise the property. And then with that value in mind, it also sets a benchmark and it creates what we call a reserve.
Okay.
So there's a stigma that properties are sold for next to nothing. There's a process behind that happens. There will be valuations. Then we would see what the market tells us about the property, looking at different methods of valuation.
Yeah.
Is it a rental income property? Is it a residential? Is it vacant land? And so forth and so forth. Are there services? Are there tenants? No tenants? And so many factors. And then that will give you your value. That value then is a benchmark and also a realistic I would say, value of what the property is worth in the market.
Okay. All right. So you've touched on a number of things, and I think we will unpack, some of them as we move along. So let's actually jump onto that question, that this young man who was here, just posed. And it probably ties in with my next question, which was, are there any, misconceptions, or if there's one, misconception that you believe that people have about buying property on auction, what would that be? And I think the question from the young man was, why are properties on auction cheap? Are they cheap?
Very interesting question. And, various people will have different experiences. I like to refer to the gambling industry.
Okay.
And I will refer to it from a positive perspective within the gambling industry, where you could spend 20 Rand and win 2 million Rand.
Okay.
I could spend 200,000 and lose it all in one day. Same conception as auctions. There's a perception that properties that are sold or assets that are sold an auctioneer distressed. That's not always the case. We need to understand that an auction is a method of sale. And therefore, the word auction itself is derived from the Latin word augur, which means to augment.
Okay.
So the ideology is to try and increase the value through a fair and transparent process to the highest bidder.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So by premises of that, yes, you would get various reasons for the property or the asset to be on auction.
Okay.
It could be a deceased estate. It could be a forced sale value where business is liquidating or an individual is sequestrated.
Sure.
It could be a divorce matter. It could be business rescue and so many factors. But the reality is whenever there's an instruction to an auctioneer to dispose, we never sell without the true value.
Okay.
However, that doesn't mean that you don't get assets that, just like they would sell emotionally and put a value based on sentimentality, there are individuals who just want to get rid of the asset.
Yeah.
So they say they will open it up to the market to determine to them what the value is. Now you find that in a scenario like that, the property the market says would go for 850,000 Rand.
Yeah.
But it's your lucky day. It goes for 600,000. Automatically, the perception there is that, I'll get it cheaper. But you'd go to another sale where proper due diligence was done.
Sure.
The purpose and reason for sale is totally different. There are creditors involved. There are debts to be settled. They won't take less than what the market true value is of that property. And that's a reality. So, that's the misconception. People think that properties are sold on auction when they are distressed. No.
Okay.
As a private treaty seller as well, you can actually put your property on auction. And it has been proven that it's a working method. And 80 to 90% of the time, we achieve way more than what the market value is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, going back to that behind the scenes, process, are there some big strategies, like marketing, for an example, that make a big difference in terms of the value that you actually fetch, for a property?
Correct. Yes, there are. First rule of thumb with auctions and marketing. With our marketing budget, we always use a 1% of the property value. Okay. To determine. Remember, each property is different. An industrial property will not be treated the same as a villa in Knysna. A villa in Knysna will not be treated the same as a farm in the Northern Cape. There are many dynamics. They are all classified as an asset type, which is a property. Yeah. But the zoning certificates, is it a revenue generating, and so forth and so forth. So because of that, yes, we employ various strategies. Yeah. You could sell properties individually, or you could sell them on multiple property platforms. Two, technology has allowed us to expand the buyer base and not limiting sales to just a jurisdiction area, per se. So meaning only people in Joburg can buy the property. Now a person can be in Johannesburg and buy a property in KZN in Shaka, or somewhere in Camps Bay in the Western Cape at a click of a button. So yes, rule of thumb is if a property is 30 million, 1% of that, you'll do the maths, you'll allocate towards your advertising and marketing budget. Okay. From there, it's how you employ your strategies. Print media is a dying brand, is a dying platform. Yeah. And we realize that, but then again, legislation and policy state, depending what type of sale it is on auction. Is it a deceased estate? Yeah. Government property and so forth, then I would still have
go to print.
Employ print, and it's part of what policies and legislation states. So you'd find that I'm selling a property in Waterfall for a private client, and I won't spend a cent on print. And all my advertising and marketing is on a digital and online platform, and it works for that type of property. Okay. So yes, I think I've...
All right. And so if I want to sell my property through auction, what is the typical timeline for that auction to actually go up? So the behind the scenes and all of that, what's the typical timeline to have that, to hold that auction?
Okay. Common business practice states what the guys are doing out there. They're giving generally 21 to 30 days.
Okay.
It's realistic. It complies also going back to legislation.
Yeah.
There are certain strategies as well, going back to the marketing strategies that we've employed in the past that we note actually work for properties. For example, it's never advisable to sell a property on a short notice. At the very same time, don't keep it too long on the market.
Okay.
You know? So we work around a 14-day period just for the advertising of that specific property.
Okay.
However, within that 14-day period, we also use that as a threshold to do the behind the scenes administrative due diligence on our end.
Yeah.
SG diagrams, zoning certificates, title deeds, valuations, and all of that, which we employ various professionals within the industry as well.
Okay.
To render these services and assist us in actually delivering those services. So we would take, let's say, plus minus 21 to 30 days to the day the hammer falls. And the advantage with auctions is when that day does arrive. Unlike private treaty sales, you have a set date and you have a set time. So after that date and time, you know if it's a win or lose.
Yeah.
Whereas with the private treaty, I have viewing this weekend. I have viewing in 2 weeks' time. She's still applying for a bond approval. Wada. And, it gets the job done.
Okay. And then from that time that the hammer falls, what can then the seller, or rather even the buyers expect to the time that they actually get their title deed?
Okay, very interesting. So we have what you call your conditions of sale, which is basically your offer to purchase document.
Yeah.
Now, the purpose of this document is to clarify the applicable terms in the transaction and the sale for transfer to happen.
Okay.
Private treaty states that as a registered real estate agent or property practitioner, which auctioneers also have to comply to. It doesn't mean because you're an auctioneer, you are permitted to sell property. You have to have the necessary credentials in place for you to be able to administer that function.
Okay.
Firstly, so to answer you, it's simple. The offer to purchase document speaks to the process and the terms that are applicable to the transaction.
Sure.
It will speak to your COC certificates that are applicable. It will speak to your risk and liability.
Okay.
It will speak to your force majeure if there's a dispute. It will also speak to your payment terms.
Okay.
Now, the auctions, they emphasize, and the advantage is on the payment terms.
Yeah.
One, we state that 10% of the purchase amount needs to be furnished on the fall of the hammer and signature of the offer to purchase document.
Okay, all right.
This is a fair clause in the aspect that, one, if you're a serious buyer, you want to get things moving. Two, if you're a serious seller as well, you get to understand that this guy is serious. He or she is a serious bidder. They commit by showing that they can pay 10%. So in essence, you sell a property, 1.2 million, sold, boom, to Siskolulwa, buyer number 292 for the day. Congratulations, ma'am. May you go to our office to sign your offer to purchase.
Sure.
At that point in time, if depending, are you buying as a trust, as an individual, as a business, is there VAT applicable? All of those are addressed on the offer to purchase. Two, 10% of that 1.2 million, 120,000, fully refundable, ma'am, if you default.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Fully refundable, but your registration fee is not refundable.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Your premiums are not refundable.
Okay.
Okay.
So registration fee, that is the amount that you pay which gives you to bid.
Permission to bid.
Right.
Correct.
So everyone who's going there to bid
Yes.
has paid that amount, which is non-refundable.
Yes.
And what's the premium?
So it is refundable.
The registration
Fee. Yes. For you to be applicable to even participate on the auction, you need to comply to FICA Act, which is copy of ID, proof of address, and so forth. Then there'll be a registration fee. It differs with each property type, each property value as well.
Yeah.
Depending on the risk, it's a mitigation process to actually vet serious buyers and get rid of the time wasters and the tire kickers. So when you now register, we conduct the auction. Boom, you are the successful bidder. All right?
Okay.
You are then now put to terms to say, okay, congrats, ma'am, but let's see how serious you are. You give us 10% of the purchase.
Sure.
You then have 21 to 30 days to fetch the balance.
Okay.
However, if it is a government property, you have 90 days to fetch the balance.
Okay.
As per legislation. Right. So Sis Kulula would buy the property, congrats, you sign the offer to purchase. You pay 120,000 plus whatever VAT or whatever into the auctioneer's trust account. You present that to the client. They have 48 hours or whatever terms may have been agreed on for them to accept or decline your offer.
Okay.
So the offer hasn't been accepted yet, but by virtue of you committing, we are now clear that you're a legit bidder. All right. Present this to the seller. They have a certain time period that's set out for them to confirm acceptance or decline of the offer. Let's say you're 100,000 below, going back to the notion of properties being cheaper.
Yeah.
It's their discretion. It's their property at the end of the day. As the auctioneer, I'm an agent and I represent the principal at all times. So they decide, I can take a knock of 100,000 or let's negotiate. Ask him to put up at least less 50, not 100. Or add another 50.
So when we're saying below, are we saying below the reserve price?
Correct.
Okay.
So reserve price was 1.4 million, but we've reached 1.2 million.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
So to you, subject to confirmation, ma'am. Well done. Congrats. All right? When you are registered on your registration, there are rules that are engaged on as well, which clarify these things that obviously what happens when you do register, what happens, what is liable, who's not.
Okay.
Who the property still remains in ownership of until whatever process happens. Yeah. So you consent to all of that.
Okay.
That has happened. You've paid 120,000. We present the offer to the seller. They're happy. They say, boom, let's make it happen. They sign. When they sign, you are now bound by that contract.
Okay.
To now raise the balance.
Okay.
How you do that
is your business.
It's your business. Whether you have an investor, whether you have money under the mattress in Palapata, or offshore accounts, whatever the issue is, that is your own number.
Okay.
During that process, the auction team are compiling your file. We're getting ready to effect transfers.
Okay.
Making sure that when you require A, B, and C, everything is in order as per your information pack.
All right.
Title deeds, wara, 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 wara.
So then the traditional, registration process then takes place.
The role of a conveyancer is obviously that of a conveyancer.
Sure.
Auctioneer doesn't. There, the conveyancers would also have their own costs that they apply to, obviously, depending on the value of the property, whether or not there are costs or so forth for the conveyancer's fees. Yeah.
Okay. So for someone who's considering buying a property on auction for the first time, what advice would you give them?
Research. Do your research. Attend at least 3 auctions.
Okay.
And when you attend auctions, do understand there are the various types of auctions. You get timed online auctions. You get simulcast auctions.
Okay.
And you get physical on-site auctions. Okay. You might walk to the property. It's in Randfontein. It's an agricultural holding. Yeah. And it's conducted on-site there. Or you could be walking into a conference center in Wanderers.
Yeah.
And there are various properties on sale on that day. And you'll be bidding against not just yourself physically, but other buyers from any house in the world. Actually.
Okay.
And you can be sitting at home on your laptop and literally having a cup of coffee and bidding the auction. So get that experience. Just get a feel of it. Understand it. Read the rules of auction.
Yeah.
But most importantly, understand the property itself. Do your own due diligence. Have a checklist if you have to.
Yeah.
And just tick off all the necessary Boer Beetle certificate, COC, whatever. Anything that you pick up, make sure that you question it and you get a response and an answer on it.
Okay.
If there's any doubt, consult with more mature bidders or more mature buyers who have bought either on private treaty or on auction, just to get clarity on any concerns you may have. Don't shy away from asking questions from the auction house.
Yeah.
Our function and role and law states, as per Consumer Protection Act, we are there to actually give you as much information as we can on the property itself, where we can. And if there are any omissions, we need to declare those as well.
Okay.
And as much as discrepancies and wear and tear and so forth.
Sure.
Yeah.
And for someone who's considering selling their property on auction for the first time, what do they need to know?
Yeah. For someone who's considering selling on auction for the first time, I would say apply the same approach as well. Sorry about that. I should have put this on silent. Apply the same approach as well.
Okay.
Apply the same approach. Do your research.
Yeah.
Look at your comparable sales in your area.
Yeah.
Understand which property sold on private treaty and which property sold on auction.
Okay.
And you'll be able to assess your comparison on whatever methods you would employ, obviously, to gauge. 2, understand the rules of auction. There's a stigma that when you sell on auction, you are in distress. That's not the case. It's not always the case. It's a fast and quick method of getting rid of a property or any asset for that matter. And it is a working method. It's one of the oldest sales method that has been employed. Back in the days, they used to sell slaves on auction. And it is proven that it is, you get the highest value on auction dispose of properties. It will give you the most realistic value of what you are selling.
Okay.
So because of that, if you are going to attach sentimentality and any other reason, deal with that first before you sell. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. You need to be able to accept the facts and the reality of what the market say about you. And once you are ready to do that, then sit down with an auctioneer. They will take you through the process. You engage in the process, see if it works for you. If it does work for you, then good luck. I think,
All right. So you've spoken about the reserve price, and you're also speaking to the emotion, the emotional aspect of what I believe my property is worth, which applies, I guess, to whatever mode of sale that we choose as owners, of assets. How do you set this reserve price exactly, and how important is it to set a reserve price?
Okay. Like we said, I think earlier on I did refer that we employ professionals within the whole value chain of preparing for an auction.
Have evaluation.
So we will have a valuation from a sworn valuator, which will give us a value. They will employ various methodologies, of course, either comparable sales and other methods that they use to value the property. 1. 2, we would also do research to see if there's any case study or scenarios of similar properties and what challenges may affect.
Okay.
So you would find that we've had scenarios with subdivisions and all of that where it's a deceased estate, the family are fighting over portion 1 of portion whatever and all of that. And you find that the valuation when it was done on a consolidated piece of land.
Okay.
But now that it's split up, are the dynamics that we need to factor? Are there servitudes? Are there services? So many other dynamics on which part of the land is. So are there riparian rights if there's a river running across, and so many other dynamics.
Yeah.
So we employ professionals, to get the value. And then I think also, as we had mentioned, based on research and comparable stats from past auctions as well, we also get a feel and understanding of the area, the type of property, and so forth, to say realistically, this is what we think we can achieve.
Okay.
And then from there, we would sit with you, obviously the client as the seller, to then present our analysis on what we have extracted with data information to get the value that we believe is a realistic value.
Okay.
And from there, it's your call to accept or decline, and it's without prejudice.
Okay. Yeah. And so then we would say that it's important to have a reserve, because as a seller, it gives you an indicator of the minimum that you'll be able to fetch from that property, or at least then if you get lower offers, then you know how to benchmark, against.
Correct.
And I think then it also, I guess, influences the buyer's mindset. Correct. That they don't start, from a no-start offer.
Correct. Correct. I just need to correct you there as well. There's a perception that a reserve is the starting bid. It's two different things. A reserve is a reserve. It's the benchmark of what the market says that property is.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean as the auctioneer
that's where you start. Okay.
So as an auctioneer, it's an art and a skill, and it's part of my expertise to be able to read the room, to understand my buyers, to understand my clientele. So from there, I'll be able to determine whether or not to start close to the reserve, start at the reserve, or start above the reserve.
Okay.
And then, I guess just like an artist, it's up to me to then try and see if I can match the reserve or be above.
All right.
Yeah.
Whilst I've never bought a property on auction, I have been to, auctions. And I think even those that I've seen, like even on TV, I've never seen a female that is actually running an auction.
Okay.
Are there female auctioneers?
There are female auctioneers. But we need to understand auctioneering is a very diverse space. So what I've noted is just like any industry, one would find their passion within that industry. In the built environment, you'll have your quantity surveyors.
Yeah.
You will have your architects. And you would have your contractors. All of these people work in sync to give a final product.
Yeah.
Similar applies with auctioneers. There'll be guys who focus strictly on property. There'll be guys who focus strictly on art. There'll be guys who focus on jewelry. There'll be guys who focus on fleet. There'll be guys who focus on wildlife.
Okay.
And then there'll be the likes of us who are all-rounders. So because of that, you do find female auctioneers, but you would find that they are in unique segments of the auctioneering space, especially art. I know Sotheby's have got a female auctioneer. I know in Cape Town, Ariella, she does marine auctions. She sells boats and heavy ocean equipment and rigs and whatever. So it's not that she's not there, she's there, but she's not in the general conventional perceived auction space. Yeah.
Okay. Now, legal considerations. And I know you've touched on, the due diligence that goes into preparing for an auction, whether as a seller or a buyer, even the auctioneers. But what are some of the important legal considerations that both buyers and sellers in an auction, needs to have? For an example, the foot stewards clause. If you buy it, that's just how it is. Let's talk about a car, for an example, and it might differ from a property. You see it right there. You have not had an opportunity, to get a key and to switch it on and to actually drive it on the road. Or even you have, put in a key and you switch it on. When you drive on the road, you actually find that this car is not, you're on your way home now. Actually, I think there was an experience. My husband bought a car in auction once. And I saw this car moving very slowly on the road. And there were issues, with the car. Fortunately, he was able to fix it because the car still had warranties on it. But so what are some of the legal considerations that we would need to bear in mind?
First and foremost, all auctions are guided in South Africa by the Consumer Protection Act 48 of 2008, Section 45.
Yeah.
1. So the Consumer Protection Act is there generally to protect the consumer, whether you're consuming fast movable consumer good off the shelf or consuming an asset. It's a consumption at the end of the day, right? So because we are guided by the Consumer Protection Act, we need to abide by certain laws and rules as well.
Okay.
Going back to the voetstoots as is clause.
Yeah.
The perception is the auctioneer, when they say voetstoots or as is, in total, basically it means you take it as is and that's it. Rightfully so. But before you do that, I have to, by law, afford you an opportunity to satisfy yourself with this product.
Okay.
And hence we have viewing days as auctioneers.
All right.
To say, yes, I'm selling it under these terms, but for you to consent and agree to these terms, let me allow you time to get as much information about this product.
Sure.
Let me give you that time. So we'll have viewing days. We will have description of the property or the asset in question.
Yeah.
When I talk about description, we are not engineers or mechanics.
Yeah.
We will state that noise in whatever, scratch or dent here and there, minor, whatever needs TLC.
Yeah.
We need to disclose all the discrepancies and that we see to our best ability and understanding. When I withhold those, that is where I'm wrong. So if I sell you the car, for example, in the case of your husband, and I tell you that the car is got a engine sound and a engine light knocking, I may not know what the cause of that is, but do know that there's something wrong with this car. When you buy that car, you're saying, I'll take the risk. They told me, they disclosed to me, I went to see the car.
Yeah.
I viewed it. I satisfied myself. To a point, other auctioneers even allow you to bring a mechanic with so that you do your own diagnosis and analysis on it so that you satisfy yourself. So legally, we are bound to comply to the Consumer Protection Act, which states that we need to disclose all information to you before we can sell to you. We need to give you the right to satisfy yourself. We need to advertise within a certain time frame.
Yeah.
The reason for that is so that we are not misleading or withholding information to a certain degree. And over and above that, when we give you a viewing day, we are saying, come, have a look at this. Then no one is forcing a gun on you. Then you consent and fill in and comply to the FICA Act and say, okay, here's my idea. I am satisfied that I've seen A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And I will take the risk on taking them. Whether you've done your own analysis that I'll fix them cheap, I've got a brother who's a panel beater, whatever the story may be.
Yeah.
So you are given that right, and it is a matter of your own prerogative to either decide to proceed with the sale or not. So it's not like we try to hide things and cover them behind a certain clause to say that, bam, now that you've bought this, by the way, the radiator's leaking. This is, no. It doesn't work like that. So, yeah.
Okay.
To answer you, yes, we afford buyers enough time to satisfy themselves. There are rules and regulations. There is also the South African Institute of Auctioneers, which is the regulatory eye and watchdog of the industry. If there are any grievances, complaints, you lead them there, which could obviously put that auction house in a position.
Okay.
There's a code of conduct that we need to abide by. And that is why we always advise people who are selling or buying on auctions to always verify the legitimacy. And by doing that, you are going to the regulatory body, you are verifying with the likes of PPRA, are they genuinely registered?
Sure.
Are they legit people to actually transact and conduct either the purchase or the sale for you in terms of the auction.
Okay. You've spoken to, the scenario where you will be in a room at an auction and there are people who are bidding online. Someone is sitting at home drinking their coffee. Are there any other trends that we have seen, come up in the auctioneering space?
Oh, there's a lot of trends. Trends are popping every day. I've seen WhatsApp auctions.
Oh.
WhatsApp auctions. I've seen WhatsApp auctions. Interesting.
Okay.
I've seen trends now. People are putting value on sentimental items using the auction platform. So my granddad's hat that he used to wear in the war in 19 whatever.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we are in an age of information. We want to retain nostalgia and history and whatever. And because of that, people would take risks and they would take the non-conventional approach and sell certain various items on auction. And
so it's an individual auction.
Yeah. And we've seen some wonders, things that, people selling cows for 4-point-something million rands.
Sure.
And you're thinking, would you have ever achieved that through a private treaty sale where it's a bartering transaction?
Yeah.
I give you my cow, you give me the money. No. And it's been proven that auctions do realize these values unrealistic. So yes, trends are changing. People are bidding more online. With that happening as well, security measures are being breached.
Okay.
So because of that, we also need to evolve as auctioneers. For example, in my business, we don't accept cash in hand. And 5-10 years ago, I tell people, I remember I did a livestock auction, Kukumbu. And I'm not from Gumbo, I'm from Mthatha. So the logic was for me, my business as a businessman, when I've made this money, I'm running and I'm going to bank it in Mthatha.
Yo.
It's a 40-something kilometer drive.
Yeah.
I've never sweated that much in my life. I was a young guy and I had lots of money I've just made on an auction selling cows.
You're getting out of Kukumbu, driving to Mthatha with this money, and a lot of people who know.
This money is not mine. That's another thing. It's a client's money. I've sold them. I'm only going to earn once. So I have to take this money now from Kumbu to Mthatha. But years later, with clients of mine who had grown with me as a business, they were resistant to why you're not taking cash and whatever. And they had to accept that I needed to evolve. And I would always make reference of the story because it only hit me then. I'd done other auctions, and I'd finish the auction, I'd drive to the closest in Durban, deposit the money, I'm safe. But with evolution, trends, everything, there's more crime out there, there's more things, there's more information out there. People have more exposure of doing things that you didn't even think of. So because of that, we had to mitigate those things and also evolve and understand. But, it just came to prove some trends are good and some trends are not for the benefit of us. But, the online tapping thing for me, man.
Okay.
The future. I'm happy that it exists. I'm not driving from Kumbu to Mthatha with,
thousands in your boot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've spoken to WhatsApp auctions. You've spoken to now just slightly to the tapping. When we're looking 5-10 years from now, what do we imagine the auctioneering space would look like?
We're definitely moving there. I went to Hong Kong a few years ago.
Yeah.
I like to travel to explore my industry and see what my peers and other people are doing out there. And it's, traveling is always a window that opens you to different things.
Yeah.
So, I sat in an art auction. It was a silent auction, actually. That's when I got introduced to online auctions. Then 6 years down the line, COVID happens. Boom. I've already adapted to this because I was exposed to it 3 or 2 years before. So when it happened, it actually worked to my advantage. So that, I'm just trying to think, when we say virtual, there's these 3 dindondons. I don't know what they call them. Glasses.
Yeah. that give you the virtual experience, like you are in the room.
Yes, so
walking through.
Yes, so I saw a wildlife auction.
Yeah.
That was conducted as a prototype with that. Then I said, we're still going far. They had a group of Asians buying wildlife somewhere in a game reserve in South Africa while they're sitting in a hotel in Asia. All they were doing is they were realistically imagining that, here's the buffalo, but he's not there. And you'd place his bid. Oof, I'll take this one for 200,000, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And it just shows, the limitations are beyond what we can imagine. Sure. We're evolving, and who knows? Yeah, man. I mean, currencies are changing as well.
Yeah.
So soon we might be transacting properties in Bitcoin, in whatever currencies you see. So there's blockchains, there's an ever evolving technology out there, and we need to adapt and keep with the times. So there's a lot still going to happen with the auction space. A lot.
Sure. And in the property space, are there types of properties that we find, lend themselves naturally to auctions as opposed to others? Or which ones are those?
I'd say deceased estates.
Okay.
And I would say a lot of liquidation properties. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So whether it's residential, commercial,
yes.
But
under liquidation, 80-90% of the time it will be disposed on auction. And
all right.
This is a deal that has been,
Okay. So auctions are for everyone, essentially.
Definitely. And we'd like to see more of our African brothers and sisters participating in auctions, because what people do not know, auctions are the most variable platform of acquiring assets.
Yeah.
I've seen many of my Caucasian brothers become wealthy in land acquisition, in asset acquisition, through the process of auctions, by attending auctions, building a crowd just from wood and poles they bought on auction, building, owning one of the first waste trucks in their small town from a truck he bought on auction. And they offer a service which is, benefiting the community and so forth. So I've seen auctions work. I believe in auctions.
Yeah.
And we want to involve more Black people in auctions.
In that space.
And
And you spoke to, who Kwanele is, but I'm intrigued to know about the journey of starting as an auctioneer to a point where, Riley Auctioneers was born.
Okay. As I'd mentioned, I'm from the former capital of Transkei. So that ideology has always been instilled in my DNA. I went to boarding school. My parents were fortunate enough. My grandparents actually were fortunate enough to be able to take me to a good school. Never had I imagined I'll be an auctioneer.
Yeah.
Never had I known what an auctioneer was. But what got me to actually pursue it was when I started researching about it. Okay, so how this happened was, I'm in Cape Town. I'm a young lad. I have my first car.
Yeah.
Rockstar lifestyle. I thought life arrived. No kids, nothing.
Yeah.
And, life happened. I had a car accident. Fortunately, it didn't take my life. But what it did take away from me was the belief that life was just a sailing boat. Like, it took that away from me. It made me realize that, there's more to life than what I was living. And I lost my car, but to make things simple, lost my car, lost my job, found another job, and that's how I got into sales.
Okay.
When I got into this job, through a Black Muslim friend, funny enough, when I met the guy, he was from Kwalanga in Cape Town. Being a Transkei boy, I was not really accustomed to auction life and all of that. But this guy and I connected. And he was like, yo, for some reason, I can see you down, bro. What's going on? And I'm like, hey, my life is not working out, bro. He's like, no, listen, I work for a car sales company. my boss is actually looking for sales guys. Maybe we can try you out and let's see what it works. At least you'll have something coming into your stomach. I was like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it. At that time, you won't believe I was earning 2,500 Rand in Cape Town. So I took this as a basic 2,500 Rand. I had a target to sell 15 cars every month to get commission. And I'll tell you one thing. Ali was a brilliant salesman. That guy was meeting that 15. He would go to the weirdest places. He had the craziest strategies, but they worked. But I realized they didn't work for me. And then one of the owners of the business would fly in.
Okay.
Once a month.
Yeah.
Deem us all failures.
Because you were not living to Ali's...
and other salesmen to earn more than the 2.5 that we're earning so that we can unlock our commissions. But over and above that, we were not moving his sales. We were not moving his cars on the floor.
Yeah.
So he would send an auctioneer.
Okay.
And this guy would get there and take my 15, my 20, his 20, whatever, put them together, have 120 cars on a Saturday. Stand on a podium, and he would sell all 120.
Yeah.
I went back to my apartment in Belleville, and I was like, there's definitely something not balancing here. How do I spend 30 days trying to sell 15 cars?
And someone sells...
And this guy rocks up. What is it that he's doing? That's when...
In an afternoon.
Yeah. You'd fly in from Joburg, land in Cape Town. We'd know that day all cars are washed, they pack. And the useless asses would stand there and... watch this guy in amazement working his magic, and he was speaking first. So I was like, what is this? They call it an auction. Like, what is an auction? Started researching. Like anything else, when you have an interest and an appetite for something that excites you, that lights you up, you want to know about it as much as you can. And there was resistance. And it seemed my black brothers and my fellow people didn't know about this. And to them, it was just deemed Ifandes. And they're like, I'm done. And I'm like, guys, you don't know what I saw in Cape Town. This guy would sell my cars that I'm trying to sell in one day, plus 100 more cars. Then one thing led into the other. I was getting resistance with information, but I kept asking. Then I started Googling, which auction houses are there? I started understanding the history of auctions in the country. Then the company that I was working for with the sales was like, yo, dude, we can't afford keeping you on board anymore. You need to go. Can't afford this 2.5. You useless. You're not selling. Oh, damn, what do I need to do? I took a bus. I went back home.
Sure.
I was sleeping in my room that I slept in when I was, 13, 14? Picture got Dr. Kumalo on top. And I'm sitting there and I said, my life can't end. I went to my mom. Mom, there's this thing called auctions. I want to know this thing. She asked me one question. Who do you know that's black?
That has done it.
That is doing this thing.
Yeah.
It took me 2 months to get that answer.
Sure.
And I found a guy by the name of Dirani Mabunda.
Okay.
I did research on him. And I was like, okay, so here's a black guy who's doing this.
Yeah.
Then I said, well, you know what, Olet, I'm going to be the next black guy. Or the first for the others. And the journey has been, interesting ever since then. I came to Joburg. I've been to Miami, Florida, worked on cruise ships selling art. I've done shared auctioneers in Stutterham. I worked for a guy in East London called Thompson Trading. They used to sell pots and pans. So I got every on the ground experience you can imagine, with livestock, with furniture, with pots and pans. And then, logic prevailed. If you want to make real sales, where do you go? In South Africa, only Joburg. If I want to sell mining equipment, if I want to sell fleet, if I want to evolve and up my game. And that's how I then decided, you know what, let me equip myself. Let me do courses within the space. Let me educate myself. Let me understand the space. And I got my auction diploma. I did my fleet management through University of Pretoria. I did Insolvency Law through University of Pretoria. I registered with the necessary bodies. And so forth and so forth. And by doing that, it enlightened and opened me up to the space to best understand that auctioneering is not just the disposal of assets. It is a turnkey solution to the disposal of those assets to realize value out of them.
Sure. What a story. What a journey. So as we wrap up, we've got a question for you from the guest that we hosted.
Okay.
The last time I scanned through it, so I think I still remember it, but let me just be sure. So with G20 coming to South Africa, what opportunities are we hoping to see for Black people transforming the economy?
Okay, very interesting question. Talking about my journey, my company evolved from Riley Auctioneers to Riley Auctions Africa. Why Africa? It was because after attaining and walking the journey and getting my qualifications and credentials, I built up the confidence to understand that when I present my business, I'm not just presenting a business on the merits of it's a Black business.
Yeah.
I was presenting it on the merits of we've got the capacity, we've got the credentials, we've got the expertise, and so forth. So I then realized that we talk about transformation on a basis of color, but the reality is transformation looks at gender equality. It looks at education as well.
Yeah.
How do you transform a society? How do you transform anything for that matter? And it then delved with me. I sat on the advisory board with Services SETA, promulgating the study material towards auctions and the disposal of auctions. And the core important thing that we identified there was that we need to separate movable auctions from immovable auctions. There are different qualifications that should be acquired on each one. So I believe with G20, what it's allowing is Africans to now embrace Africa as a whole in whatever space or industry you are in, meaning potential to trade and operate beyond our borders.
Yeah.
And as mentioned, as I'm saying, we are now Riley Auctions Africa because we align with those beliefs.
Sure.
First opportunity I got in Africa, funny enough, and people laugh at this, was bigger than the first opportunity I ever got in my own country. I got an opportunity to sell an oil rig in Nigeria, something I never even imagined. But that exposed me to say, you know what? Why can't Africans also come in, acquire assets or use us as a base to also dispose of assets?
Yeah.
So G20 is opening up doors. It's allowing entrepreneurs, especially those that are Black, to understand that the scope is bigger than government. It's broader than what we perceive, and also it speaks to innovation. It also speaks to the advancement and progression of businesses in their various industries.
Sure.
And people think that certain industries need to stay the same way. They don't. They need to evolve. And by that evolution, then they are transforming. You are then integrating more people into that space. Simple example, auctions realize plus minus 2 billion rands of sales worth per annum.
Sure.
And Black people only play in 1% of that. Now with G20, if I've got a population from Nigeria that's participating, it increases that percentage because they're Black as well. But it opens doors for us. It creates an expanded platform for us to trade and operate as.
Yeah. So as South Africans actually looking beyond just South Africa,
correct,
to the region, to the rest, of Africa.
True.
Well, that was quite a conversation. And if you are considering buying anything on auction, I hope that this gave you some insights, some education, and really empowered you on what you need to know and how you need to show up in that space. Thank you for joining us. And I hope that you will continue to like and subscribe and share this platform with other viewers. Bye.